Well, it's important to remember that there was an FBI investigation of President Trump's interactions or his campaign's alleged interactions with Russia that predated Mueller. And even in that investigation, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page text to one another that there's no there there. There's no evidence. And so I think it is entirely appropriate to open those doors by asking about what evidence Robert Mueller and the Office of Special Counsel reviewed that might have been tainted or miscast as a result of its development by people who had a known bias against President Trump. And so I think that in looking at the work Mueller did in his report, we'll have to look at what were the inputs and what were the potential pollutants to those inputs regarding political bias. And frankly, I think that a lot of this was miscast and developed by people in the Obama White House, like Clapper, like Brennan. That's why the work of the Inspector General, as well as the work of Attorney General Barr, are so critical to make sure that we actually find out who was responsible for this terrible lie told to the American people for 2 years. So I'll be spending my 4th of July weekend rereading the Russia hoax, so I'm ready to use my 5 minutes well.
Very good. So should James Comey be proud of his conduct? Joining us now with more on the progress of the Inspector General report is Texas Congressman John Ratcliffe and former Congressman and Fox News contributor Trey Gowdy. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. I served with both of you in the Congress. Congressman Ratcliffe, you were a former U.S. attorney. Trey Gowdy and I served with you. We both abandoned you and left you there to your lonesome there on the Judiciary Committee. But my understanding is that you've had a discussion with the Inspector General just a few days ago. Tell us what happened and what transpired.
Jason, Trey, good to see both of you. Yeah, I did have the opportunity to meet with Inspector General Horowitz last week. We talked about his report, the timing of his report, not the content, and he related that his team's investigative work is complete, and they're now in the process of drafting that report. So I would expect that it will be a draft that will be completed in short order. I will tell you, though, Jason, I don't expect that any of us are going to see it anytime real soon. He did relate that as much as 20% of his report is probably going to include classified information. So that draft report will have to undergo a classification review at the FBI and at the Department of Justice. So while I'm, hopeful that we might see it before members of Congress recess for the August recess, I'm not too certain about that.
This is always the frustrating thing. It's happened multiple times where we had reports when I was the chairman, when Trey Gowdy was the chairman. The Department of Justice would review things for weeks on end, if not months. But it is encouraging, though, that the Inspector General is going to be right there around the corner. Congressman Gowdy, I got to tell you, you have a very definitive James Comey who thinks he did everything by the book and that he did everything that he was supposed to. But you and Congressman Ratcliffe are the two people that I know of that have actually reviewed the FISA, unredacted, the FISA reports. Is Director Comey right? Is this just all for nothing because he did everything the way he was supposed to?
JC, I just want to make sure that we have the right James Comey. Is that the Comey that wrote he didn't leak in a memo that he later leaked? Is that the James Comey that said he didn't do weasel things while he was memorializing what he said was a private conversation? Is that the same James Comey that said the FBI didn't give a hoot about politics while two of his senior aides spent the better part of a year discussing two political candidates that they were supposed to be investigating?
Yeah, I think that's...
Is that the same James Comey, the one that you just played? It is the same one?
Yeah.
It's the same one that took advantage of the Trump administration by sending FBI agents to interview Michael Flynn while they let Hillary Clinton have a small law firm when she was interviewed. I just want to make sure it's the same James Comey. I don't know what Horowitz is going to find. I have a lot of confidence in him. He's a straight arrow. He's just looking at the FISA abuse. United States Attorney John Durham is looking at what happened in the late winter and spring of 2016. So your viewers have to have kind of a line of demarcation. Just remember Peter Strzok, if that name sounds familiar, in late July 2016 initiates a counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign. That's July of 2016. Horowitz is looking at the FISA process after that. Durham is looking at the origins of the Russia investigation prior to that. And I'm hopeful that those two investigations together will shed a lot of light so America can know what happened and then move on, because it's been a really divisive 2 years.
No, it has. And Congressman Ratcliffe, again, you've been a U.S. attorney. You and Trey Gowdy have reviewed the FISA reports. It says verified at the top, and I guess maybe if they want to debate what verified means, but you've actually looked at the unredacted reports. Comey says he did everything right. You two have looked at it and said it's not wrong, but that it was potentially done poorly and wrong and deceptively, and maybe exculpatory information was left out. Is Horowitz going to be the definitive word? What is his role in this process?
I think he's going to be one of the more important voices. I know a lot of folks are looking forward to Bob Mueller's testimony on July 17th that's coming up, but Bob Mueller's going to talk about collusion that didn't exist, about obstruction that the Attorney General found didn't exist. You can ask Bob Mueller 10 times in 10 different languages, and I don't think there are going to be any new facts. I don't think there are going to be any new conclusions. But Michael Horowitz and his findings and John Durham and his findings, those are going to be significant. Those relate not to Trump misconduct, but to potential Obama misconduct. Look, you know, Jim Comey says they did everything right, even though, as Trey pointed out, you know, you've got the lead investigator who promised to stop Trump, wanted to prevent him from becoming president. He had a deputy director who lied under oath on multiple occasions and was criminally referred. And as Trey pointed out, Director Comey himself leaked private conversations with the president. You know, he has apparently a different definition of the word proud when he says he's proud of all that work. But we'll find out. Michael Horowitz, I do think his findings will be significant, Jason, because it presents a real potential problem for the Democrats. Right now, we already know Bob Mueller has told us that a Democratic administration started an investigation into a conspiracy with Russia that did not exist. That's bad enough. It'd be a whole lot worse if it turns out that that same Democratic administration continued that investigation by breaking rules at the FISA court. If that happens, you can pretty much put a pin in any impeachment balloon, because it'd be hard for the Democrats to say, well, we started an investigation that we shouldn't have. We continued it by breaking the rules, but we want to impeach a president for trying to obstruct that investigation that never should have started.
So, Congressman Gowdy, let's go back to Director Mueller, who's coming to testify. You're no longer on the committees that would be questioning him. What are the Democrats up to? Why would they do this? And if you were on the Republican side of the aisle, what kind of questions are you going to ask Mueller?
Well, first, the easy part. Why are the Democrats doing it? Because they're never held accountable by the D.C. media. I mean, they brought Michael Cohen and John Dean as either fact witnesses or experts. You would have been excoriated as a chairman if you had brought two witnesses like that. But they've got a safety net. They're never criticized. You're calling someone who doesn't want to come, who's not going to deviate from the four corners of his report. Some of us didn't even think his report should be made public. We sure as hell don't think he ought to be testifying. But they're going to get a pass. What should Republicans do? They should prepare. You've got the best lawyer in the House as your guest tonight. I'm not worried about Johnny Ratcliffe. He's fantastic. But the other members need to prepare, and they need to think in terms of tranches or buckets. What did Mueller find? No criminal collusion. What did he not find? An indictable obstruction of justice offense. What did he not bother to look for? Johnny just mentioned collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. We do know one campaign was getting dirt from Russia. Did Mueller bother to find out whether or not the Russian government was feeding that dirt through Christopher Steele to Fusion GPS? Did he even ask? And the legal issue that is really important, and Johnny just touched on it, if you can resist an unlawful arrest, can you really obstruct an unpredicated investigation? Which is why it's important where Mueller began. And I don't think he began by figuring out the origins of the Russia probe as it relates to Trump. But we'll find out. Prepare, set low expectations. It's 5 minutes. It's impossible to unlock the mysteries of the world in 5 minutes. I wish they weren't having the hearing. I'm really glad that we got a good lawyer like Johnny Ratcliffe that's on judiciary.
No, a lot of us wish we could just pour all the questions into that bucket. But, gentlemen, it was a pleasure and honor to serve with both of you. And I thank you for your service. And Congressman Ratcliffe, we wish you the best and Godspeed in these upcoming hearings. Again, thank you, gentlemen.